Having all the right ingredients, uninhibited, and exposing the hard, cold facts about the Watchtower Society. And now, Disney. Well, hello everyone, and welcome in. Welcome into our program tonight, After the Storm, with our good friend Gail, former Jehovah's Witness out of Houston, Texas. Well, I'll tell you what, friends. Gail, well, she's into accounting, so she deals with finances every day of the week, and I'm sure sometimes it's like overwhelming for her. But, she wanted to come on here tonight and talk a little bit about Watchtower finances. And we know these guys are really, running all the way to the bank and they're laughing at you. They're making a lot of money. And of course, the rank and file witness, they have no idea. But we have Gail. She's going to be talking somewhat about this tonight. So don't you guys go anywhere. Stay with us. We want you to be able to call into the program and talk to Gail. So there you are, Gail. Hello.
Hello. Hi, Rick. Hi, everybody.
Yeah.
Thank you for
Well,
staying.
everything's going, yeah, where we can hear you fine and dandy. So that's a good thing. So we're looking forward to your program tonight. So from what I understand, you will be talking about Watchtower finances.
Well, more the governing body, not much into the finances, but I'm going to show something that came up last week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay, it's fine. I mean, the governing body, I mean, we know those guys are doing all right. I don't think any of them are hurting. So what I'll do is I'll drop out of the scene here, and I'm here if you need me. So just let me know.
Okay. Yeah, I'll ask you to share the screen in a few minutes after I do the intro, if that's fine. Okay. Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of After the Storm, my favorite night of the week. You could be anywhere else. I know it's really late, for some of you, but thank you for sticking around. We have a lot to talk about tonight. So last time we were on, I had Gilbert Gonzalez on with me, and he's running for the governing body. He's GG for GB, right? And towards the end of the show, election day is right around the corner, but I don't think there's a deadline on his election. You can vote for him anytime. Anyway, so towards the end of the show, somebody was bringing up finances, but we were over time, and I couldn't really, get into it. So I was wondering if Jeff is on the show tonight. Can I put Jeff on the spot to join me tonight as my guest? Do you know, Rick, if Jeff is with us tonight?
I know he's on earlier. Let me just see 1 second here if he is.
I couldn't get a hold of him by the phone, but
Jeff from Iowa. Jeff from Iowa. I don't think he's on. He was on earlier, Don, and I should have mentioned that at the time. But
that's all right.
All right. Yeah.
That's all right. But he always says, follow the finances, follow the finances. And so back in 2018, when I had first woken up, I thought about starting a nonprofit organization. And so I, Googled and looked at YouTube videos, and I came across this video from 2018 from a Toby Mathis. And I was shocked at what I heard him say. So let's go ahead and share, if we can share the screen now, please, and I'll go ahead and play that. Okay. And so I just Googled, how to set up a nonprofit organization. So I listened to this video, and he's telling you how to start a 501c3. And I just want to play a couple minutes and listen to what he says.
That it is for owners. It is set up to give its profits to owners. In a not-for-profit, there are no owners. You're set up to benefit society. So there's no shareholders in a not-for-profit. That means that we have to have some governing body. And I'm going to tell you the easiest way, when you're talking to a group that's approved over 3,000 of these, the simplest way so you don't get guff is to have a board of directors.
Okay, did you hear that? You need to have a governing body, which is essentially the board of directors. And so when I was listening to that, I was like, what? I was The board of directors. Huh? Oh, okay. I thought I heard somebody say something. Okay. I was newly awake. I heard this term that I grew up all my life associating this term, governing body, with Jehovah's chosen, people that was over, us to give us the food at the proper time. They made it a scriptural teaching, and my mind was blown when I heard him say this. I'm like, what? Governing body is just a financial term, a tax term, if you will. And hearing that and looking more into it was another piece of waking up for me. It was it broke the chains, because I'm like, that's all the governing body is. The term governing body is not found in the Bible anywhere, but they made it a teaching. They attached it to a scripture, the scripture in Matthew 24:45-48. And so now, the governing body is now this spiritual entity, but it's not. The governing body are the board of directors of a non-profit organization. And that set me free. And I hope this set somebody free tonight. So let's go over to, I had a busy week. Our second tax deadline is coming up on Monday. For people who filed extensions back in April, the deadline is Monday. So I've had another busy week, but I just wanted to show you guys something. Nonprofit organizations, are we still sharing the screen?
What screen you want shared?
The same screen, because I'm just going to be going from tab to tab, really.
All right.
Okay. So nonprofit organizations, they have to fill out a tax return as well, just as any other entity. But instead of a 1040 or Schedule C or an 1120, or, it goes on and on, their tax form is called a 990. So nonprofit organizations fill out this tax return that's called a Form 990. And you see here on line 4, it's asking for the number of voting members of the governing body. When I see it on a governmental form like that, it helped me disassociate what I thought the governing body was my entire life. Okay. Line 3, the number of voting members of the governing body, number of independent voting members of the governing body, number of individuals employed in the calendar year. I think there were several. Let me type in governing body in here. There were 11 references to governing body on this Form 990. So it talks about Section A of, what section are we in? Supplemental. I think we're still in the 990. But Section A is talking about the governing body and management. And you can go to irs.gov, pull up the Form 990, and you will be, shocked to learn that governing body, which a lot of us know, but if just in case there are some PMOs on the line that really still believe that the governing body was chosen by Jehovah to run this organization or to give you your food at the proper time, I really hope that this helps. I really hope this is an eye-opener for you, as it was for me. But if you read through this form, there's several references to it. I lost it. Let's see. Governing body. Let's go down. Governance. Enter the number of voting members at the end of the tax year. Same thing. And governing body is mentioned 11 times in this document. Okay. So we are pretty sure that the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society, they have to do this tax return as well. And I'm pretty sure the end of their fiscal year would be September, because they make a big deal about October being, or is it September being the start of the new service year? Well, this is all it is. They are just a fiscal year tax filer. So their fiscal year ends in August, and I think it starts in September again. Nonprofit organization, they are required to have board meetings or annual meetings. And guess who got to be a part of that? We did. Okay, so we were invited to the annual meeting, and so you document that yes, your 990, your nonprofit organization had an annual meeting, or how many hours were spent, you know, in running this organization. That's what the timekeeping is all about, is to fill out this document. So I encourage you to look it up if you are doing research into what this organization is, what you had been a part of, what you are may still be a part of. If you're questioning it, I hope this helps. Go to irs.gov, pull up Form 990. There's several versions of it. Now, Rick was kind enough throughout the week to send me a couple of 990s, and we're trying to still put the pieces of the puzzle together here. But let me bring this screen over. Here is a 990. And let's see, is it coming up on the screen? Yes. Okay. Here is a 990 from 2013. And the thing about nonprofit organizations is that they have to be transparent. So 990s are open to the public, right? So you can ask for request a copy of their 990 filings if you like, if you want to inspect it. So here is this one from 2013. The name of the organization is the Henrietta M. Riley Trust for Watchtower Bible, and then it stops there. The address is in Detroit, Michigan. And what is the purpose of this organization? It supports the Watchtower and Bible and Tract Society. And they have their tax exempt status here checked off as 501c3, but their form of organization is they are a trust, but they support the Watchtower and Bible and Tract Society. So if you thought the Watchtower and Bible and Tract Society was it, there are many other entities, and I'll show you some more. On this form, it talks about the governing body again. This one was 31 pages long. Not too much money to write home about. They were reporting $3 million at the end of the year. Let's see, do they talk about, they didn't put the date. For calendar year or tax year beginning May 1st. Okay, May 1st to April 30th. So that's the filing year for this entity, the Henrietta M. Riley Trust. Okay, so you can take a look at this document. It's pretty lengthy. I scrolled through it. I didn't see anybody's names that it would mention, but the thing about it is what Toby was saying in his video is a nonprofit is not dissolved. It just keeps going and going. And that's why this society has been able to last for over 130 years, right? Because it was an entity that was created, and it just keeps going. It just keeps going. And so Henrietta M. Riley is the trust for Watchtower Bible and Tract Society. It doesn't designate which one, and I'll tell you why I say that. Because on this 990 is from 2020, also a 501c3, but this one is a Form 990T, exempt organization business income tax return. And here, so here is their fiscal dates, 9/1 to 8/31. Okay. This one is for Watchtower Bible and Tract Society of New York, 900 Red Mills Road, and the books are in care of the accounting department. And this is in Wallkill, right? And if you notice, contrary to the other one I just showed you, this one is a 501c3 corporation. And where is that other checkbox? The trust is not checked. They're just the 501c3. This one is only 2 pages. It seems a little bit incomplete, and it's signed 2015. This one seems incomplete, but I need to dig into these tax returns a little bit more get more, but there are more entities than just what we know of, right? If you open your Bible, if you open your magazine, we're used to seeing it. The Watchtower Bible and Tract Society of New York, of Pennsylvania, and then I want to show you guys this. I'm sure a lot of you know about the Shepherd the Flock of God book. That is the secret elders manual for the elders. And when I read this book, I was really surprised that a lot of brothers have been elders for as long as they have, knowing that this document exists, right? Because if you go to avoidjw.org, this is the newest version of the Shepherd the Flock of God. It's updated like twice a year. But I went to the second page, and I saw this when it first came out. I went to their publication page, their copyright page, right? And look at what it says. Copyright, Watchtower Bible and Tract Society of Republic of Korea. Okay, so I don't have any guests tonight. I don't have any co-hosts. Please feel free to speak up. This is an open forum. Please tell me, has anybody noticed this before? And do you have any comments on what I've shared so far? Just press *6 to speak up, or yeah, if you're watching on YouTube, you're going to have to call into 6 screens. I can get the number for you and put it in the chat, and do *6 to speak up. How much of this information that I shared with you tonight have you known, and is this information, is it new to you? You're with us. Go ahead.
Yeah, this is David.
Hi, Steve.
At your Watchtower magazines, it says incorporate INC. That starts out as a corporation. And if you go back and look at your electric co-ops that you have in your county or your state or wherever you live, and look at how they do their 501(c) plans, basically what the Watchtower does too. And then if you go back and look at Special Olympics program, that's 501(c) plan too. You look at that. You look at some of the things that your county schools have. They have 501(c) plans. And then go look at other local churches. They have them too. And if you go back and look at who is their shareholders and everything, you'll understand a little bit more of what you're saying.
Yes.
To all these people out here.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that, Steve. The reason I wanted to bring it up is to kind of disassociate your thoughts of what you thought the governing body was, and seeing it from a secular standpoint. The governing body are just the board of members of this nonprofit organization. They're just a money-making machine. Well, it says, they're supporting, if you look at other documents, it says that they're supporting the Bible work and everything, but we are still investigating, following the money. But this was shocking to me. Has anybody ever heard of the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society of Republic of Korea? And then it says the publishers are the Christian Congregation of Jehovah's Witnesses in Wallkill. I find that laughable because the elders didn't write this. I find this laughable because the elders. Yeah, go ahead, please.
Hi, this is Apostle Babe Linda James. Yes, I did notice that about where it was made. But it was because I was watching another video and they pointed it out, and I can't remember who. But I remember thinking, how odd. So yes, I have heard of that.
Very odd.
That way is strange to me.
Very strange. So does this mean that?
That price would get.
Yeah, it's very convoluted because, okay, there's a Society of Republic of Korea. Do they have to fill out a 990 as well? I'm not sure. But how many editions? How many editions of the Shepherd of the Flock of God book is copyrighted to the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society of Republic of Korea? That's something else we need to look into as well.
Interesting.
Hey, Gail.
Hi.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Linda.
It's Chad from Returning to Light, and I can actually tell you why it's done from Korea.
Hi, Chad. Thank you. Okay.
Yeah, the way it's done like that, once again, it goes back to the tax reasons. In America, the way it's set up, if you register your tax-exempt corporation, then it's going to have its own set of rules, which is why you'll see Watchtower Bible and Tract Society of Pennsylvania and Watchtower Bible Tract Society of New York. It's two different entities altogether,
Right.
and that's how the law recognizes it. If it's done by the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society of Korea, and it's not done by an American company, then it gives the American Watchtower Bible and Tract Societies plausible deniability. They can say, well, yes, it has Watchtower Bible and Tract Society, but it's not of us in New York or our sister in Pennsylvania. They're a totally different corporation altogether. So it gives them a bit of legal, there's a legal way they can actually deny it as being an authoritative writing for their organization.
Exactly. And did you notice underneath who they're saying the publishers are?
No, I didn't.
Underneath it says under the copyright, the publishers are the Christian Congregation of Jehovah's Witnesses. And so that makes it easy for Watchtower Bible and Tract Society of New York, of Pennsylvania, of whoever, to shift the blame now to the Congregation of Jehovah's Witnesses. And we know by looking at certain court proceedings that is what they do. They said the rulings don't come from them, or the direction doesn't come from them. It comes from the local Congregation of Jehovah's Witnesses. And this is just a way in my mind, to shift the blame. Let's see. Where was that? Yeah. Okay.
Well, not only shift the blame, but shift the responsibility. Because, like you said, this is a secret book. This is not something the congregation has access to. It even says so in the front of the book. This book belongs to so-and-so and is not for anyone else to look at. And it's always issued to an elder, and the elder is to return it if they no longer perform the duties of an elder. And by them saying it's published by the Christian congregations, they aren't only shifting the blame, but they're shifting the responsibility. Because now, if someone wants to sue because of something written in that book, it's possible, it might happen, it might not, but it is possible that because of the way that's written, you would have to sue every single Watchtower member, every single Jehovah's Witness, in a class action lawsuit nationwide, which is going to be impossible because there's so many of them.
Yeah.
That would take years just to get everyone together.
That's interesting.
It's really a thing of brilliance the way they're doing it. Speaking from a legal standpoint, I've been on a few 501c3 corporate boards.
Have you?
So I've seen how some of this stuff happens and how some of the things work out.
And the members they're voted in, aren't they?
It depends on how it's organized, because they can set it up so that you'll either have a board of directors, which you were calling a governing body, that's another legal term for them. they can have it so only that board of directors gets a vote, or they can set it so even only certain parts of that board get a vote. Because the minimum you can have when you organize a nonprofit corporation, you're going to have a president, a treasurer, and I think it's a vice president or something, or
secretary.
something. I can't remember what it is. It's been a couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
But once you get those three members, you can set it up so only those three get to vote, or everyone on the board gets to vote on something. Or you could even set it up so you would have to call a meeting of a congregation, and that entire congregation would have to vote. If you go to a Baptist church, that's usually how it is. It's a congregational form of government, and they'll often sit down and everybody who's an official member of the church gets an equal vote. So there's different ways they can have it set up. But the last I knew, the Watchtower didn't believe in congregational style of church government. So they're keeping it just to probably the governing body members is probably the only ones that are going to get a vote, those 8 men.
Yeah. I remember, do you remember, there were certain resolutions that were read and the congregation got to vote on it? You were voting on something, that was governed by the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society, the governing body of this entity. That's what you were doing. They
right.
need to document.
Yes, they were using the Jehovah's Witnesses as a rubber stamp.
Exactly.
Whatever they wanted.
Exactly. But let's talk about the body.
I can guarantee none of those meetings were held properly, because usually it's even in your articles of incorporation how you're going to operate your meetings.
Yeah.
And usually they tell you it's going to operate, or usually you tell them you want it to operate under Robert's Rules of Order, which I happen to have a copy of that book. And all that is a book on how parliamentary procedure works, how you bring forth a resolution, how it is announced, who it is announced to, who is going to vote on it, how the votes are to be collected, the wording that has to be used when something is passed. I guarantee they did not go through all those formalities. Because, I've never been a Jehovah's Witness. I'm Chad from Returning the Light, by the way.
Okay.
I'm familiar with how all this stuff works.
I'm writing that down. Returning to Light. That's awesome. So once a year, I thought you were a witness. So once a year, like in October or something, the Jehovah's Witnesses will have what's called an annual meeting. And in years past, you have to be an exemplary member or a pioneer or somebody that was in the truth for a long time. And you got a special invite to go to New York and be a part of this annual meeting. And then they, within the last 10 years or so, let's say 7 to 10 years ago, they opened it up to all of Jehovah's Witnesses. So, back in 2013, when they released the new Bible, I want to say that was the first annual meeting that they opened to all of Jehovah's Witnesses. So could that be, part of the Articles of Incorporation, how, stating how they're going to run this organization? They'll have this annual meeting in October.
It could be, because every corporation sets it up differently. And one thing I got to point this out, and I've pointed this out on different programs in the past, when I was doing Returning to Light with Roland, I think it was on one of my earlier first programs. I pointed out that a church, a religious society, is not taxable. They cannot be charged taxes. The only reason the Watchtower incorporated was because under the Johnson Act, passed by Lyndon Baines Johnson, with the 501c3 status, then it became possible for a church to own and sell property.
Wow.
And a lot of churches today, they incorporate just so, because a lot of them think, well, if we're going to buy a building and it's going to belong to the church, then we have to incorporate. Legally, there is a couple ways around that. I know with my ministry, I did not incorporate, because when you incorporate, you are then giving the government, the U.S. government, authority as to things you can and cannot preach or practice do. And they're minimal things for most of us, but some of us have, principles that just don't want it to be applied to us. So for me, I didn't want that type of authority over me to control the topics I could speak of. So what they ended up doing, they incorporated, so now they can deal in real estate transactions.
Wow.
Because there's no reason for them to incorporate for any other purpose. And that's a two-edged sword for them, because once they're incorporated, the corporation can be sued, but the membership cannot.
Oh, wow. It goes deep, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Wow.
The laws go so deep on this. I mean, that's why when I had just tuned in and I heard about the Elder book being published in Korea, and that's when I knew, okay, I better call in.
Oh, awesome. Actually, I showed the Form 990, the tax return that nonprofit organizations filled out. So I think you may have missed that. And one of the 990s was for a Henrietta Riley Trust for Watchtower Bible and Tract Society. And then another 990 was for, Watchtower and Bible and Tract Society. And, it talks about the governing body.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, that's going to be your main charter, the one with the governing body.
Yeah.
That'll be the main charter one for the organizations nationwide.
Yeah. And then they make a big to-do about the governing body members being chosen by Jehovah, but governing body members in the legal sense, they are voted in, are they not?
That is true. They absolutely are voted in, and that would determine, you would have to look at their articles of incorporation for their headquarters. That would tell you how leaders are to be voted in or voted out, because they can be voted out. It doesn't have to be a lifetime appointment the way they tell everyone.
Wow.
And also, if they are set up, like you were talking about how once a year they have to get together to hold a vote,
Mm-hmm.
when you hold that vote, it is possible to remove current members of the governing body. Like if everyone got together and someone put a motion on the table to remove, elder so-and-so as our elder, or governing body member or so-and-so from being on the governing body, the one to remove that elder, if the majority vote and pass it, that's it. That person is no longer the elder, regardless of what the Watchtower Corporation wants. Now, there would have to be a motion to send it in and call it a national meeting to remove a governing body member, but that would potentially be possible. But the problem is the Watchtower is so secretive, nobody knows when all these meetings are taking place. Nobody knows where to get their articles of incorporation from. And if you call the legal department, they are obligated to give it to you,
Mm-hmm.
but they're going to give you the runaround, and you will have to jump through hoops to be able to get a copy of it, because they're going to say, do you want it for a specific congregation, or do you want it for the headquarters, which headquarters, New York or Philadelphia, you have to call that one. And then you would have to talk to their finances department because it doesn't come through legal. And then if you call the legal department, they're going to say, or if you call the finance department, they're going to say, well, it has to go through legal. So they're the ones you would talk to. And they would just ping pong you back and forth between legal and finance.
Yeah. Probably hoping you'll get frustrated and give up, right?
Exactly. But, and that's another thing, like with all these Watchtower, you know, with the lawsuits that are going against them in the United States of America, if the Watchtower did not incorporate, like if they actually went and unincorporated today,
Mm-hmm.
so they no longer deal in the real estate transactions, at that point, it would no longer be possible to file a lawsuit against the Watchtower. You would only be able to file against that one specific person who committed the crime and anyone who helped cover it up.
Wow.
So the Watchtower could save themselves millions by unincorporating, but then it would also cost them millions because they no longer be allowed to deal with things like real estate.
Wow. It just looks like a convoluted cobweb to me because, you know, sometimes you see Watchtower spelt as one word and then sometimes you see it as two words. You know, that's a different entity too.
Yep.
So you have the incorporation, you have the nonprofit, you have the trust, you have, you know, but they change the rules when it suits them. Like if they're in court, they'll, like you said, shift the blame. But let me go back real quick. Since you have not been a Jehovah's Witness, have you ever heard of Ray Franz? Do you know who Ray Franz is?
Oh, yeah. I got his book.
Oh, okay. Yeah, he was on the governing body, and he spoke about the voting process on the blood issue, and I'm sure he was voted out as a governing body. He was, you know, governing body member. He was voted out. Oh man, so you know when you think of the legal ramifications and the implications of this organization, that set me free. It really did. The chains of bondage that I had been under for 50 plus years just broke off. And I saw it for what it was, what it is, and there's just no going back, you know. So I enjoy bringing this information out to the public. Many have. Somebody in the comments said that Jason Zelda brought it out. Linda said somebody else brought it out. A lot of us are, you know, a lot of people have. I'm not claiming to be the first one to find this information, but I just find it fascinating that, you know, I wanted to share with my audience in case there are PMOs here. And Jay says he is a PMO. So welcome, Jay. Would love to talk to you when you get out. And I'm glad that you have known about this information. Let's see. I saw another comment. Tequila Sunrise said, yes, they changed it to Korea after the Australian Royal Commission. Interesting. Jay said, I've known most of this information, but appreciate you educating the people. Okay. Which you can dig further, you know, feel free. Yeah, many entities is money laundering. Mm-hmm. Yep. Subsidiaries, yes. And so that's what I was looking for on the 990. Like the one I showed you, I know it's not complete because you don't have a 2-page 990. I mean, it can be anywhere from 30 to 50 pages, but I would be curious to see who they listed as their subsidiaries. Okay. What else? The annual meeting.
I got one other thing I want to share with the audience.
Yeah, let's let chat finish, please, and then you can come in. Thank you.
Here's something that most people don't realize. I mentioned earlier that churches are non-taxable, and I mentioned how the Watchtower incorporate so that they can deal with the real estate transactions and that type of a thing. There's something else the audience needs to know. By law, and I'm speaking legally here, a church is not recognized as an entity that can be sued or can launch a lawsuit. A corporation can. And that's really important. We need to understand the legal definition of a corporation is an entity that is created by the state. The state itself is the one that incorporates a corporation.
Right.
It is then legally recognized as a state, as a government-created entity. So all this talk that the Watchtower has about not being caught up in government politics and not being caught up in the worldly government way, the moment that they filed for a 501c3 tax exemption, they sought the government to make them into a corporation.
Yeah.
They were literally created by government.
Yeah.
And that's something with Jehovah's Witnesses, that should be something that should raise their eyebrows.
Right.
They did not have to incorporate to be tax exempt. They were non-taxable until they incorporated. Once they incorporated, then they had to file for for tax exemption. So they went from being non-taxable to being a corporation, which is created by the state, to being a tax-exempt nonprofit corporation. So that's all I wanted to say, and I'm going to go ahead and mute myself now.
Thank you, Chad. Thank you for your input. I appreciate it. You were very insightful. There was another caller trying to come in. Come in, please.
Was that me? Hello?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it's Zachary.
Zachary.
I've been wanting to get in. I tried not to unmute and say anything, but this is a subject I looked into about 5 years ago. I was looking into these 990s, trying to find the society's real 990. There was a person who had a program on about 7 years ago. Her name was Diane, and she always said that she had a 990. She had their 990, and I never heard her give any of the numbers out. And I wondered why, but she just never gave any of the numbers out. And I went on this quest to find the society's 990 and to find out what the requirements were for the society. I don't make any claims to knowing anything, but this I have looked at. The 1990, as you mentioned, it is a trust. So that has trustees who handle it, and it's been set up. That trust has been set up for the benefit of the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society. So they're beneficiaries of the trust. And so I see that as a 990. Notice, however, that the other 990, the one that has the actual Watchtower Bible and Tract Society on it, and it has their tax identification number on it, their own tax identification number. Notice that says 990T.
Yes. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you're on YouTube, but I have it up now.
Oh, I'm on the video suite. I can see you have it up.
Okay.
Yes, the 990T is for tax exempt organizations. And let me say this about tax exemption. Or 501, tax exemption under Section 501. Yes, the state, you apply to a state to become a corporation, but then you apply to the IRS for tax exemption, to be classed as a tax exempt organization. So it's a kind of a classification. But the 990T is different from the full 990, because the 990T, what I believe, what it does is for the purpose of reporting unrelated business income. Yeah. So you set up a 501 corporation, and in this case, it's a C3. You set that corporation up, And as you're setting it up and putting forth your the purpose of it, what it's going to do, you have certain things you're going to do. Sometimes you have activities that fall outside of that. And that's when you have to do a 990T. A good example of it is when you have a church, that would be, of course, tax exempt, but maybe that church rents out space for a school that maybe the church is running. Well, that income from that, the rental income from that school would possibly be reported on a Form 990T.
Yeah, and some churches, not the witnesses, but some churches also operate a daycare, summer camp. I guess you would report on the, yeah, okay, I follow you.
Yes. So that's the idea of 990T. I did look at that one that you're showing some years back then, or closer to then, and I did notice that the numbers are awful small for it to really be the Watchtower Society's 990. And I still wondered, well, how come I can't, why is it so elusive? And so I did my own research. I went through law books and dummies books and, you know, all the books. I'm sitting in the library with a pack of books. And what I come out with is it does not appear that churches are required to even file a Form 990. There were two things I was able to notice. There's a church and there's a religious organization. And I'm thinking the society is classed as a church and everything under them is a church. That's why it's so difficult, if one even exists, to get one's hands on a 990.
Yeah.
The 990T that you're showing, if I can remember, that one was because they sold property. So the sale of property would not be in their activities as a church.
It's other business.
Unrelated.
Unrelated, yeah.
Yeah, it would be unrelated to being a church. It would be unrelated. It's a gain. Capital gains are going on there. And so I think that that's why they did the 990T that year. I don't know that they would do one every year even. Can I remark about governing body?
Sure.
The term?
Did you hear the video that I played earlier? The opening video that I played?
Yeah, I did see that. I didn't look at it myself, but I heard you playing it.
Okay, all right.
But I remember there was a conversation when I was going through Bethel Entrance School, and there was another couple in there. I'm going to say their first initials. H was his first initial, and hers was C, I think.
Okay.
M and CM. Okay, so we were all going through Bethel Entrance School, and we were going to the hall, or coming back from the hall, and we were in Max Larson's car. You know, we were in the back, and Max and his wife were in the front. And we were talking about Bethel Entrance School. We were kind of excited. It was like the first or second or third week of it. It starts in September. And Brother Larson then said to us, he said, well, who's on the board of directors? You know, this is information he knew. He wanted to hear us say it. And we all looked at each other and we were like, the board of directors? And we said, they didn't talk about the board of directors. They talked about the governing body. And he said, oh. And I think at the time, he was I think he was on the board of directors at the time. And he wanted us to come up with his name probably. So when they're using the term legally governing body, I don't know that that means the same thing as a religious governing body. A governing body can be a board of directors with the officers like the other brother was saying. Those four special officers, the president, vice president, treasurer, and secretary. That and then the rest of the board. That's a governing body. in itself. And so when they speak legally and they're talking about governing body, that's the kind of governing body they're talking about. I really do think that they separated the two sometime around 2001. At least that's what I was told. You know, yeah, they separated the religious governing body from the ones who are on those legal documents. I think, I don't know.
Because if you look at how the structure of it, you will see the names. Google it. You will see the names of the secretary, vice president, and president. Names we've never heard of before, and I thought that was interesting.
Yes, and they're not governing. They're not the same names you hear of on the governing body.
Exactly.
That's kind of the point I'm making. That when you're talking legally about that term governing body with witnesses, we use it in a special way. But when you speak about a governing body of a business entity or an entity, you're generally talking about the corporate officers rather than a college of cardinals, so to speak, central college, you know. I think that was, and did I already say, I don't think a church even, it seems to, after all that research, I came out of a thing where religious organizations are supposed to file Form 990 if they're, you know, fall under that exemption, tax exemption 501. A religious organization, but not necessarily a church. I did not see where a church has to do it. And there was even in the definitions, and I can't recall the exact difference, there was a little bit of a difference in what a church is and what a religious organization is, believe it or not, at least at that time when I researched it, about 5 years ago.
So Jehovah's Witnesses would be the religion. Watchtower and Bible and Tract Society would be the entity. Would you agree? What you were saying?
Yes. Yes, it is a legal entity, Watchtower Bible and Tract Society. And you mentioned 1 and 2 words. Watchtower Bible and Tract Society of Pennsylvania, they use the 2 words. And then after that, they seem to make it into 1 word, everything later on.
Yeah.
Watchtower Bible and Tract Society of New York Incorporated, you know.
See here on the the 990T, it's 1 word, Watchtower Bible and Tract Society of New York. And then, like you said, the one in Pennsylvania, it's 2 different words. Well, I'm not sure if this is Pennsylvania, but it's confused. I'm going to say it's confusing, and I think it's purposely done that way, or they've dug themselves in such a deep hole that they can't come out of, that they keep coming up with these new organizations, these new entities like we're seeing here, Watchtower Bible and Tract Society of Republic of Korea. and so how did it make you feel? Because I know you left the organization probably in the early 2000s. Is that right, Zach?
My last meeting was in 2008.
2008. Okay.
Last time I attended. Yes.
Yeah. So when you learned about this information, how did it make you feel?
That they are incorporated?
Just the whole structure of the religion that you grew up in, finding out these loopholes that they have going on, and making it into a religious teaching. How did it make you feel?
See, I view them as how would you say it? I kind of view them as all religion. However you view religion, I think that they try to control by their teachings. But if I'm giving a person advice, if I'm giving a group advice, and I know that they're going to start a religion, they want to start a church because they want to teach, I would definitely tell them you need to incorporate, because one of the first things you learn when you're just studying business is the difference between proprietorships and partnerships and corporations. And with proprietorships, that's a single person owner of a company, no special incorporation. One characteristic of it is unlimited liability. A characteristic of a partnership is unlimited liability, unless you have one of those limited liability partnerships or limited partnerships. But in a limited partnership, you have limited partners, their liability is limited, but then you have a general partner who's got unlimited liability in a limited partnership. So I would advise anybody, if you're going to start a group, it's not a bad idea to incorporate, because the difference with a corporation is you have limited liability. You can't be pursued. Your personal possessions can't be pursued. So the way I talk about it is not popular. And I think it's a wise thing to be incorporated so as to have limited liability.
Yeah. And what I had in my notes on it, I wonder, what we're finding out now, we've learned to think critically, right? Is this why the information that we're finding out, is this why they discouraged higher education from learning stuff that we're learning tonight?
Oh, absolutely. I'll tell you what my table head told me once. I did go to college. I did my research and everything. I researched in the Watchtower to see, because I'd heard people saying, no, you can't go to college. College is evil. This and I heard all that all the time. So I did my own looking, and I know the society leans against it. They do lean against it. I agree with that. But then when I looked and to find out, because I was getting close to graduation and it was time to know what to do for certainty without going by what I heard other people say. And I did my research and I decided, okay, I see the things that they are saying to watch out for. And so I said, I'll watch out for those things. And I did go to college because I loved school. I loved it. Yeah. And I couldn't see myself not going, so I had to extend it. You know what I mean? So the society has said, when you ask that question about higher education, I think in the 1975 questions from readers, they deal with the subject. I did research in an older Awake magazine. I think it was from the 60s, and they talked about higher education. They talked about what do you call them? Atheist professors who are atheists. Yeah. How they might cause you to erode your faith in God. And they talked about living on campus with people who were not Jehovah's Witnesses, with worldly people. And another thing they mentioned was classes in courses in logic. Mm-hmm. And so there were those were the three main things that I was able to see that they spoke against. And I said, okay, so I won't take courses in logic. I'll watch out for the professors who are atheists, and I will commute. I won't live on campus. And so I went to college. Yeah. And I missed maybe 4 meetings. So when I'm sitting up, I had this conversation with a brother. It was my table head at Bethel. It was not a long conversation. But one day they were talking about spiritual pursuits and morning worship. And then my table head at the time was, I'll say his whole name, Dave Weigel. He worked in the writing department, but at the time he was no longer writing articles. And when I turned to, he knew my background, we talked. And then I said to him, I went to college. almost like a put down, because, well, hey, I went to college. Almost like a put down. And he looked at me and said, yeah, but you went to pick up a skill.
Yeah.
You went to get a skill. And it's like, he's talked like, okay, that's an acceptable thing. That's what I thought too. But it made me also realize that what they go against, they tend to really go against is courses in the humanities. When you're going for studying for liberal arts and you're going to expand your mind. And so it probably is very true what you're saying. The thing they have against college is it will turn you into possibly a critical thinker, and you will assess things that you're hearing from through the pages of the Watchtower. You will look at it more critically.
Exactly. Yeah, Don says, I'm sorry. Thank you, Zach. Thank you, Zachary.
Zach, can I ask you a question?
Go ahead.
If it's okay with Gail.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Okay, hey Gail, this is Gilbert. Hey, listen, Zach, I got a question for you. When we were J-Dubs, for example, Nathan Nora was president of Watchtower, New York, and then it was France, and then it was Henschel. But Henschel was the president of Watchtower, New York, and then he stepped down and it went to Don Adams, and then he died shortly after that. So this is the point. The point I'm trying to make. I don't think Don Adams was a Jehovah's Witness. His father was a president of some other church. I believe they were in the church business.
No, Don Adams was one of Jehovah's Witnesses. It was Don Adams, and he had two brothers there also. So there were three brothers who were the Adamses, and Don was one of them.
Yeah, he worked with Nor. He worked with I remember that. But what my question is, when he was like president of Watchtower, was he actually a real Jehovah's Witness, a real one?
Yes.
Was he going to the meetings? Yes or no?
Yes. Yes, Don Adams. If he wasn't going to the meetings because he was sick, there were jokes made about them. They were called the Adams family.
No, yeah. But the reason I asked that is because you know how all the governing body members, they love the publicity. They always give the speeches, Watchtower broadcasting. But this guy was always like in the shadows. So I always was suspicion of this guy.
Well, he was not a member of the governing body. And this is the point I was making earlier. Legally, the term the governing body can refer to the board of directors, but the witnesses refer to it as the governing body. They're these people who make the rules, and they oversee the doctrinal development of the organization. But at the same time, you've got this governing body with a president, a vice president, secretary, treasurer, and other members, board members. That's a governing body also. But it's a different definition.
Correct, because back in the 90s, all of their names would be on the Watchtower, the vice president, and you would have about 4 or 5 names on the Watchtower way back in the day.
No,
and none of them were members of the governing body.
What I remember is that there were 3 people who, way back, whose names were there, and they were the secretary, the vice president, and I think the secretary treasurer. They were Noor, Franz, and Grant Suter. And when Grant Suter died, they did not replace his name. So, I think when Noor died, you didn't see his name. But business meeting, annual meeting. Sister referred to annual meeting too. One day, Helen Larson said, we were going back and forth, she made a statement about Brother Franz. She said, people must wonder how he keeps getting voted in as president. And she said, He's old, and he's practically blind, completely blind. I don't think he was completely blind just yet, but he was going blind and almost there. We saw the day that somebody started leading him. So again, at that time, at the annual meeting, my feeling is they voted him in. I wasn't at those meetings. I've only been to one in my life, the one in 2001, right after the towers came down. But they used to vote him in. But now, I think since around the time Henschel stepped down, as you said, that's when they were separating the governing body from the board of directors. They were making it more complete.
Correct. And you would also see that in the actual Watchtower magazine. And I remember France in Tucson, you know, he was blind and he was being led up. And the only reason I mentioned that is because before with France and Henschel, you had this mystical feeling and view of the governing body because they're old men. France is a blind man giving a speech on a Sunday at a district convention and talking without notes, you know, like supposedly he's a Bible scholar. But now you have these governing body members on JW Broadcasting, and it's just a complete embarrassment.
Right. And you said something about the governing body. They used to list all their names. I wasn't aware of them listing all the names regularly, but there was one time that they did list the names. They said, and the current governing body members are, and they listed about 12 names. What had happened was it was a Monday morning, and the way the governing body used to operate, and they had a chairman. One of them would be the chairman, and that would rotate. The way the presiding overseer was supposed to rotate at one time, but the chairman was supposed to rotate. And so it was a different one every year. So this year, it must have been Fred France. And Fred France says, it was a Monday morning. Fred France comes on real serious sounding. And he says, it is my responsibility as the chairman of the governing body to inform you that Leo Greenlees is no longer a member of the governing body. And he has left Bethel. He left Bethel on Friday. So it was after Greenlees was gone. This is at the time that Greenlees must have been removed as a member of the governing body. Fred France got on and made that announcement. And then it appeared, I think, in the Kingdom Ministry or the Watchtower, a statement that these are the members of the governing body. And so they announced Leo Green. It was almost like a negative announcement. They announced that he was no longer a member by not having his name in there. They announced all the members and his name was absent from it.
Oh, okay. I knew I could count on you guys to fill in the gap for me tonight. This is awesome. In the comments, I'm trying to address the comments. The real annual meeting is held behind closed doors. That's from GG for GB. And then Jay said the annual meeting is a legal meeting, but the governing body make it into something different, AKA something the rank and file finds special. Exactly. And if you see,
sorry.
Go ahead.
I wanted to say that about the meeting, but I got off on the tangent that Helen Larson said, Max, you know, how is it that they vote for France? People wonder, he's blind and he's old. But what they used to do is, now, sister, earlier you were saying that the meeting used to just be for certain people. But I seem to remember as a kid hearing about the annual meeting. And people used to go to it from around the country, from all over the place. And then they told them it's not enough room. And so they started, they discouraged people from coming from all over the place for the annual meeting. So then it became more of, you know, if you're, you know, they had, I guess they invited people. It was more of an invitation thing.
It was invitation only, and you had to the requirements were you were in the truth for a long time. My grandmother got invited to this special annual meeting before they opened it up to what it is today.
Yes, but no, they have more than one meeting. Because I remember they would always say the annual meeting will be such and such and such and such. And then they would explain that there will be an earlier business meeting. And the business meeting was the day before. And then they had the actual, it would be the day before, generally the day before. And then they had the big meeting, the annual meeting. So the corporate annual meeting was separate. And it was like I said, the day before. And then they had the annual meeting, which was just basically a special assembly day, a special event where they gave, the religious talks and all that kind of stuff.
Wow. So deep. This goes so deep, doesn't it? But the point of us talking about this is they're not as scary as they have led us to believe. It's not as scary as if you're waking up to what this organization really is. I hope what we discussed tonight is another layer of it, helps to free your mind from the bondage that you've been in from an early age, right? Because all we knew was what was told to us in the Watchtower, right? So if you look at my screen now, I have jw.org, and I remembered seeing the question, who is the governing body of Jehovah's Witnesses? And so the governing body is a small group of mature Christians who provide direction for Jehovah's Witnesses worldwide. Their work is twofold. They oversee the preparation of Bible-based instruction through the publications, meetings, and schools of Jehovah's Witnesses. But we show you legal documentation that the governing body is the board of directors for the Watchtower and Bible and Tract Society. It's a designation that they're given. It's a legal designation that they're given for their 501c C3 nonprofit status. So I really hope this helped tonight. I think we just really scratched the surface. Some of you have heard it before. Before we wrap up, would anybody like to share anything else?
Yeah, Gail, can I just ask Zach one more question about what you just said right now about what is the governing body?
Mm-hmm.
And in one thing that destroyed the country of Russia when we were kids in the 90s was that they had too many committees. It was death by committee. So nobody was really running the country. It was like everybody thought that it's like today, right now in the United States, everyone thinks that they're the president. So what you have right now, I wanted to ask Zach, you actually have a big shift, which is Jehovah's Witness religion. And you have these 8 men, 9 men in the governing body, and they all think that they're in charge. But they're not really in charge because they're all fighting for power. And then you have another section of that we just talked about today that are members of and leaders of the corporation, but they're not part of the quote religious governing body. So the religion can't. This explains why the Jehovah's Witnesses have so much problems, because there is no leadership. You can't point to an individual.
Too many chiefs.
And it creates chaos.
Yeah. Too many chiefs, right?
No, it is. Their religious setup, their corporate setup is the reason why they have all these problems.
Yeah.
Because they can't get out of them. Because no one's in charge.
Yeah.
There's not one person in charge.
Yeah. There are no owners. They're board of directors or the governing body.
See, I think their problems also result from their doctrinal leanings. I think that's where you have problems.
Yeah, because they're trying to explain one through another. They're trying to explain their position as the governing body through the religious order. And we're awake to all of that.
Can I make a comment?
Yes.
Yes, how you doing? My name is Christopher.
Hi, Christopher. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing great. How you doing, my lady? I'm gonna see if I can help out a little bit. The governing body, like you said, is a legal term, but where it's marred at is when the governing body and the faithful slave come together. So any rank and file JW is going to say, and they'll spit it out, they'll say, oh, the governing body, who is the faithful slave. So what you have is a combination of a legal term and the revenue side and the faithful slave at the spiritual side. So even though they're in charge of all these financial schemes, most rank and file JWs are going to say, oh, well, they're caring for Jehovah's earthly interests. But here's why they do that. And they don't do it with a spiritual conscience. They do it with, I'm going to use their word, I don't like to use it, a worldly conscience. And the way they do that is because they're not, and they know this, they're not the faithful in the street slave. Because even in their new light, they said that the slave wouldn't be appointed over all of Jehovah's belongings until the Great Tribulation. But Garrett Loesch comes out with a video and he says, oh, but we're appointed over some of those things. Now, even in Matthew 24, it never says there was going to be a partial appointment. So I don't even want to get into that aspect of it. But they know that they are running a financial corporation. So when the rank and file JWs don't question it or don't ask for an accountant, they say, well, if you do, then you're messing up or you're disrupting the congregation or you're just like one of these apostates who are going against the instructions of Jehovah himself. So they don't question the financial end of it. But I'll make it real simple. And I did the math a few minutes ago. I know we're talking about corporation things or corporate things. But here's the thing. All of us went out in field service from the time that we were younger up to, let's say, the age 23, 24, and people are still going on the service. Listen to this. Back then, you had to ask for a donation to cover the cost of printing of the literature. Do you remember that?
I remember that, yep.
Okay. Now, let's say one person went out and for a whole year, and let's say he collected $10 per month, which is $120 a year. Now, if you took that, and let's say that person preached for 20 years, that would be $2,400. Now, the JWs have 3 to 6 million members now. Nobody knows. Take that 2,400, put it in your calculator, and let's say multiply it by 100,000, just 100,000 JWs at $10 a month for 20 years. You get $240 million.
Wow.
That's just at 100,000. Now, you think about this. I know we're talking about the corporate revenue, but that revenue back then, sometimes I remember as a child going to the door and the person would give me $2 or $3. I put it in the contribution box. That exceeded the cost of the literature, but there was no oversight of the money. So all monies were under the heading of donations going back to the society. Now, you think about it. If you take that 2,400, which is over a 20-year period for one person, now if you multiply that times a million, that's over billions of dollars, tax-free in their pockets. So money is not only generated through these, like the Henrietta Riley Trust Fund, but other things that they're making way more money. So I know this information is out here, and most rank and file JWs could consider it just like we're doing, but they won't, because like I said, the lines are marked between the legal entity, the governing body, and the spiritual side, the faithful and the street slave. So that's why they don't question anything. But it's just like someone asked me one time, Christopher, would you take a job for a penny a day and I double that penny every day? Or would you take a job for $40 an hour? The smart person would take the penny a day and let it double. That penny a day is that example that I just gave you. And those are things they'll do. And I'll tell you this, you were asking about information that people knew and didn't know. Do any of the ex-JWs out there now or ones that are listening know that the Jehovah's Witnesses own a store in France. Did you know that?
A store? And I did not know that. I knew about residences, nursing homes, residences, but not a store. No.
Right, and you can look this up online. It's almost like an internet cafe type thing, and they've got a flagship store that's not that far from the First Bethel. So they're doing things piece by piece to sort of filter in money. Like I told somebody on another program, if you look online, I'll be real short and let you speak. If you look online, jw.org is a patent trademark name. So I can't use it, you can't use it. And they go after people who use their copyrighted music, or you put up a clip, and they'll legally go after you. But if you go up there, they've got apparel, shirts, they've got keychains that say abstain for blood, they've got cups, mugs, pens, and everything. This has the legal patent trademark jw.org. Now, either they're letting somebody place that out there and are getting what I call back-end revenue, or either they are just totally oblivious to it, and they are not oblivious to it. So the money-making scheme is going on. If you go online, you've got books online. This is the last thing I'll say. You've got books online. Now, I'm not talking about a private person selling a used literature or a used book. I'm talking about brand new books. Let's say like the Insight book. Brand new books that you can order. So let's say I was a person, I had 50 Insight books. After I sold them, you shouldn't see any post up. They are selling their material on Amazon, on eBay, on Etsy. Those books that are coming from them. Now, most people don't realize it. And then when I looked it up, the reason that you can't find out about it is because if I sell something on Amazon, I can sell it through you, my lady, and you can be what's called an AF, which is an associate affiliate. I can use the other caller and use him as a third party. So he can ship it out, you can ship it out, or I can ship it out directly. Or I can sell my books, my literature to Amazon. They'll put an upcharge to it, and then they sell it. But there is backdoor revenue coming from all that.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. This was a lot of information tonight. Thank you for.
I'm sorry, I speak fast.
Can you repeat that, please?
I said, I hope I wasn't speaking too fast. I was trying to get everything in before your program ended.
Yeah, no, you weren't. It's just a lot to take in, and really my idea for doing this show, because I know other people have done it on this topic before, is for the people that are listening in, the new ones that are listening in, the PMOs that are listening in. This may be the final nail in the coffin for you to make your decision. Like if you thought something was just a little bit off, this could be the information that tips it over the edge for you, that says really to make you question yourself, do I really want to be a part of this organization, or what am I a part of? When you see the duplicity of it, you see the religious side and you see the legal side of it. And that was my hope for tonight. There was a lot to talk about. I'm sure we can go on about it, but I just want to thank everybody for chiming in. You filled in some of the gaps for me, and I really hope you enjoyed tonight's episode. And thanks for sharing, Christopher, Gigi for GB, Zachary, Chad, Jeff, and Steve. I really appreciate your and Linda Aposta Babe. Thank you very much. And so I'm going to close it out now because we are way over time. I try to stick to an hour, but it's so hard because the information is so good that you guys are bringing out. But I just want to remind you, be kind to yourself. Be kind to yourself. Give yourself a little grace. You've been through a lot, but you're here. You're still here with us. You're making it, and you've made it this far. You didn't come this far to just come this far. So give yourself a little grace. Be patient with yourself. Love on yourself. And I love all you guys. Thank you for being here. And we will see you again in 2 weeks. I'm signing off right now. This is Gail with After the Storm. Take care, everybody. Good night.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome in once again. Well, that's After the Storm. We're glad to have Gail on with us tonight. And, well, we got a Pasta Babe coming up next, so stay with us. You're on the 6 screens, Tele Network. So let me end this broadcast now, and we'll start our new broadcast as it's coming up here very, very shortly. So let's end this.